We're going to talk a little bit about coordinates and vectors. It's just going to be a nice quick video because it's quite a small topic. So I'm going to go through a little recap of coordinates, then we're going to talk a bit about column vectors, what they are, how we use them, how we write them. Like it says in the little notes up there, if at any point you're thinking, oh, I can do this quite easily, please do feel free to just kind of like skip forward a bit, or if you don't understand anything, then obviously go back and you can review it. So let's jump straight in. Oh, backdrop popped up there, didn't want that. So coordinates and column vectors. So first of all, let's imagine you had a grid like this, and you can see you've got the coordinates and you've got some points. Let's imagine I was looking at point A. In case you've forgotten this from year 7, we start off by going along the corridor. So we start at 0. We'd say, how far have I gone across? Don't count the boxes, count the units. You can see you've gone 3 across and then 1 up. So you'd say, I've gone 3 across and 1 up. It's 3, 1. And that's how you would write a simple coordinate for something like this. So what I'd advise now is if you're take a quick pause, pause the video and just very quickly have a look at all the other points and see how, just make a little note somewhere of what the coordinates are. So pause the video, do that. Okay, assuming you've paused it and played again, and you should have had the coordinates like they are on the page. Sorry, it's lagging a little bit. So you can see, don't forget, be careful with your negatives and positives. So for example, E here, we can see is -2 and -4, not the other way around. If I was to say -4, -2, which would be the other way around, that would of course be here. Okay, so let's call that point I, and that would be over here. So do be careful with the positives and negatives and making sure that you do things in the right order. Okay, so let's just tip that forward a little bit. That's better. Let's try some other stuff. So I'm going to use a blue pen because I like blue. So that's how we do coordinates. That was a quick recap. Remember, along the corridor, up the stairs, carefully your positives and negatives, and make sure you put X first and Y second. Left and right, up and down. That's going to be very important. Okay, so let's imagine now we have something similar. We've got a grid, we've got 4 points, we've got a little island, we've got some things around it. Don't worry too much about what they are. Now, obviously, if we were going to write coordinates, which is where these things are, so for example, the lighthouse, I could say, oh, it's 13 across, it's 8 up. I could write the lighthouse is 13, 8. If I started with Parrot Rock, I could say, okay, that's -7. So I go left first, then 5. That could be -7, +5. But coordinates, as you can see, that map isn't changing. Things are where they are. So think of coordinates as like an address. It's like a fixed point. It's not going anywhere. It just is where it is. But let's imagine instead of knowing where Parrot Rock was and where the lighthouse was, instead I wanted to know how to move from one to the other. So I wanted to know, how can you go from Parrot Rock to the lighthouse? Now, if I was going to work this out, I could just very quickly count. Now, some of you will say, oh, well, if you were going to walk, you'd walk like a diagonal line. But on a graph, we can't actually count that very easily. But what we can do is we can count left, right, up and down because we've got the little grids. So, for example, I could start off, remember we always go along the corridor, left to right first, and then up and down. Notice when I've counted from Parrot Rock, I'm counting the corners. So see, like I'm making little dots here. Okay, on the corners, we're counting the corners. We're not counting the boxes. That's a common mistake students make. If I was to count these dots that I'm making, okay, then I'm making 20 little corners and then 3 little corners up. Okay, so be careful with that. So we could say, in very simplistic terms, I go 20 to the right and 3 up. But that's a lot of writing, okay? Notice as well, I've used the coordinates here and here. So you could have said, well, I went from -7 to 13 on the x-axis. That's 20 movements. +5 to +8 on the y-axis. Okay, 20 and 3. But the other way we can write this is something called a column vector. And that looks something like this. So a vector is kind of like a coordinate turned on its side. we put the x-axis on the top, the left and right. So here I've moved 20 to the right. We say it's positive 20 because if you think about it, if you look at the numbers on the grid as we go to the right, they go from negative to positive. Positive numbers are on the right-hand side. So we say, well, it's gone to the right, therefore it's gone positive, towards the positives. We can say the 3 is not, it can either be negative or positive, but here again, it's going up and up, we can see, becomes positive. So we say it's positive 3. So how can you move from Parrot Rock to Lighthouse? Well, it's positive 20, positive 3. We write them one on top of each other. We don't write them as a fraction. So it's not 20 over 3. It's not that, because it's not a fraction. We also don't write it as a coordinate, because a coordinate is where something is. But we don't have a fixed point, we have a movement. We're saying move 20, then move 3. Do the top first, then the bottom. And that's pretty much all a column vector there is to it. The only thing to be careful of is when we use positives, when we use negatives, or when we don't use either. So let's say this time we're going from Parrot Rock, which is the same place again, but this time we're going to go to Banana Reef, which is down here. Again, we can count our boxes, so we can go to the right first, and we can see we go one space. I'm just zoom in a little bit. We can say that we're going to go one space to the right. We go from here to here. Oh, can't quite see that. That's annoying. There we go. If I just go left a bit. Didn't think that one through, did I? Not very smart. We go one space to the right. Then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces down. But that's 8 spaces down, so it's negative 8. 8 down. The number is becoming 8 less. So, how far have we gone? We've gone 1 right. We've gone 8 down. As a column vector, we're going positive 1 because it's going to the right, and that's going towards the positive numbers. But we're going down, which is towards the negative numbers, so it's negative 8. So left and right first, up and down second. We can see down is negative and up is positive. If you forget that, you can just look at the graph. Let's try another couple very quickly. Let's imagine, I'm sure you've all seen, there's Meredith, there she is. Oh, she's gone now. There she is, there's Meredith, she's coming to help. So, Banana Reef, let's try Banana Reef, which is here, and we'll go to Pilot Boat, which is here. Now, if you look at that, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to the right. So again, it's going to the right, which is positive, so 8 on top. But it hasn't moved up or down. It's just stayed on the same horizontal line. So it's gone 0 up and down. Now, we have to write both numbers because if we just wrote 8, we don't know whether that means up or down or left and right. Okay, so you have to write the 0 even if you're not moving, just so you don't get confused. Let's try one more. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's try, this time, go from Lighthouse, which is here, to Pilot Boat, which is down at the bottom. Oh, it's frozen. So we're going to go kind of left and down. So first of all, we go to the left. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 boxes to the right. Good old counting. Negative 11 because it's going to the left. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 down. So we go 11 left and 11 down. And that's it. That's column vectors pretty much. So let's just summarize these. Okay, so as you can see, first of all, we don't write it like a coordinate. Okay, it is a vector. Coordinates is where something is. Vectors are moving. Isn't that right, Meredith? Yeah? Yeah, Meredith agrees. And then just remember that we do the x first, so left and right first. That's what goes in the first number. If you forget which one's positive and negative, look at the graph so we can see that positive is right, negative is left. And then after that, we do the y, which is up and down. And remember, up is positive and down is negative. Final thing, it's not a fraction. Okay, notice I haven't done this, okay, with the little line between the x and the y. Okay, we don't want to do that, so make sure you don't do that. It's not a fraction. And that's vectors, and that's coordinates. They're two different things. To summarize, coordinates is where something is, like your address. If you were talking to your friend and they say, where do you live? You might say, oh, my address is this. And it's the same wherever you are coming from, your address is your address. Vectors are a movement. So obviously it's start here, finish there. How far do you move? And obviously, if you start in a different place, it will be a different movement depending on where you start and where you finish. So coordinates are fixed points where something is. Vectors are moving from one point to another. And just remember, x on the top, y on the bottom. Positive is right, negative is left. Positive is up, negative is down. And if you forget that, just look at the graph, because the graph is positive up and right, negative left and down. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to have a go at some questions now, see how these go, and feel free to go back over this video. Say bye, Meredith. There she is. Okay.